is up, down, and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? It is another FEF League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, fine feathered folks, for yet another installment of the dramatic circus carousel that is the AD carry position on T1 after two great performances on stage for Gumayushi. The Telecom War matchup we get before the match, statements from T1 saying, and I'm going to quote directly some of it, after closely reviewing scrimmages and holding thoughtful discussions with the sole focus on team performance, Smash will be starting today while Gumayushi takes time to reset and regain form from the bench. When did Guma lose his form?
Oh my God. We got to start with it right out of the gate of the show, right out before we even talk about the match and everything. This statement is another blunder from T1 in their communication of this and everything. And especially the way that they are talking about Gumayushi and the disrespect that is coming through in the way that maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's lost in translation type of situation, but at the bare minimum, calling this a rest and reset to regain his form. Regain his form? What are you talking about? This guy was fantastic in any of those series that you're.
He went 3 straight games without even dying.
Absolute lunacy to be putting that into that equation of the communication from T1, and this is how it starts things off and really sets the tone of making this change to Smash and the way that things have been talked about. You have to assume that behind the scenes in scrims, they're pretty much, it must be just a flat out you're winning with Smash and losing with Guma in the lineup type of situation. But this was absolutely a fumble, blunder, whatever you want to call it, bad message from T1 to come through, which sets the stage for the whole feeling and conversation around Smash and Guma, because let's be honest, KT was not providing anything necessary of a pushback where the actual match in the series today was something to talk about.
Well, especially when KT's making some subs of their own. Paddock gets the start in over Doc Tom. They're looking for anything. Couldn't have two polarizing, more different AD carry roles going on right now than these two squads. But what's amazing about this statement is T1, the organization, is aware that transparency has been an issue, communication has been an issue, and they continually still fumble it with how to deal with things. And what's sad is this really does take away from Smash, and I feel like some people are almost rooting against Smash because of how Guma is being treated in this context. But then he goes on the Rift and puts on a 14-kill Deathless Kaisa game. They're getting 2v2 solo kills. Really, the real thing to highlight between these two is Keria can make pretty much anybody look amazing. Both guys have excelled in their starts.
Pretty fantastic partner to have down in the bottom lane, and it certainly also helps when KT is letting someone like Owner get his hands on Vi in game one and the type of havoc he's able to cause throughout the jungle, making these trips time after time again to set T1 up and ahead. And yes, Smash was fantastic in this series. He's been fantastic almost every time that we have seen Smash, and it really is that unfortunate situation that the communication of the situation has led to it having, where you do have parts of the T1 fandom, which we all know is so large. And when you have a large fandom, you are going to have fanatical members of that fandom who are taking this as a one or the other, that it is pick a side. You have a side to fight for and argue, and this guy's bad and all. Never how this situation should have played out. I think there is absolutely a timeline, and has to be, if you're at this point where you're prepared enough to roll this out as what you're doing, as putting Smash in and making these type of changes and statements and all these type of things, I have to believe that 5 months ago, you were in a similar situation, that you knew that this might have been a possibility, that you wanted to pivot, you wanted to move forward to Smash. You had to do it back then. Doing it now is unavoidably messy, which you have also made even worse with your management of it. Now you add in that you look back at it and say the only clean option was to go forward at that point. And I think at that point you could have had the fandom behind you. Yes, you would have had people disappointed or upset or hurt by moving on from Gumayushi, but you give that opportunity, that platform for them to leave, to separate on their own terms, not in a situation like this in the middle of the year.
It's just insane because it's not like there's, I mean, maybe there is deep-rooted behind the scenes, but there's no drama of Guma, like, I don't know, speaking out of turn, bringing drama off the Rift, not playing well. It's this weird scenario where they've made this drama out of nothing. They have 2-star level AD carries, and somehow it's become a thing. And it really does feel like these first 2 series were to appease Joe Marsh. They put Guma in because that's what the CEO wanted. They said, great, okay, but Smash is better in scrims. It seems like now Smash is going to be the starter going forward unless he has some really abysmal performances, which now just brings the question, is Guma even going to be on this team in summer? Is a guy of his caliber really going to be sitting there wanting to be a bench warmer?
And it's going to be about him personally, I think, at the end of the day is what it really boils down to, because a guy like Guma, it's going to be about his conviction and what he wants to do, how he's feeling about this whole situation. Because let's remind you, outside of Faker, there's nobody you would associate the name of T1 and that brand with more than Gumayusi, the guy who has die hard for T1 throughout his entire time in this organization, family ties to the organization with his older brother. This is someone who has been with the organization and is identified, labeled with the T1 fandom. And to have that taken away, and especially in a situation where you've given everything, you've been that consistent throughout all the down times that we have talked about, the struggles, ups and downs, DDoS, all these things. Guma has been the most consistent and strongest performing member of T1 through this newly resurgent dynasty for them. So to have him kind of brushed to the side in the manner that it has been done, with the communication that it's been done, is unacceptable to me, to a lot of his fans. The question is going to be, is it acceptable to Guma? Does he still have love for the organization, for his teammates, that commitment to that type of situation where he wants to be that 6th man, will be willing to say, if all things fall and crumble and doesn't work out the way that you think that they are, I'm your guy. I will be there type of situation, which in all fairness, I think a lot of people would say, no, I'm not signing up for that type of one. And especially if you are as talented and driven as Gumayushi is, knowing that there might be other opportunities to still get something accomplished this year, I'd be looking for that if I'm him.
Yeah, it probably all depends on what maybe offers, what teams are going to be reaching out in between Split 2 and Split 3. If it's BDD running to the booth saying, Guma, please come on to my team.
In between Split 2 and Split 3, man, I'm talking at the end of this game between T1 and KT. Yeah. If BDD's not, let me in. Let me talk to Guma. I need this guy. Because yes, there's also going to be a lot of, situations that you can dream and hypothesize of where you want to, plug and play Gumayusi into. There's going to be a lot of situations like KT where you can maybe argue even putting in a Gumayusi isn't going to be enough.
Well, that's what I mean. I think he's screening calls from BDD. He says, I love you, BDD, but I'm not joining this KT roster, especially in the LCK. I mean, it's hard to be a world's contender outside of the top 4 because they're so damn good. But yeah, this is another mystery, and I'm very curious how Guma's feeling, how it is going to play out heading into split number 3, if he will even be on the team, which is insane. And we would not be saying this if you were saying this in the preseason. You would have called someone a mad lad. They just signed this guy.
Absolutely weird times that we are in. And again, we went through a list pretty recently talking about the craziest bombshells that came through and how unpredictable it was. This whole situation that Guma could be ousted from T1 after being what he has been, that heartbeat alongside Faker, the unbelievable miracle that he is. It's crazy to think that he could be on the way out, but it enters in some interesting conversations, some opportunities. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be one of the many that is trying to speak this into existence. G2, pick up that phone. Let's see Gumayushi over in the LEC. He's loved the Red Bull League of Their Own events and heading over to Europe. Now let's make it a little more permanent.
I mean, Guma is a guy, you don't care about his English or communication. He is a guy you can plug and play any roster in the world, and he's going to be an upgrade. Pretty much over less than everyone but 380 carries maybe in the world. So keep the door open. We had some not actual drama actually on the Rift. We had a banger matchup in the LPL. The king of the jungle has asserted his dominance. Tarzan against BLG. I'm going to call this the best individual Nefiri performance that we've seen in 2025.
Hot dogging it out there on the Rift. My man, Tarzan roaring back on through and with a big time performance in game 3 to make the series happen for anyone's legend. Get that big upset against BLG. And this is one of those ones again, the anyone's legend squad kind of outcasts, the misfits of potential prospects and stars within the LPL have all grouped together and are putting together something special. Tarzan having a performance like this feels just like a rightful claim within the meta that is emerging to say, okay, you want to talk about Nafiri, you want to consider that an option, you gotta think about what I can do on this channel.
And I'm just loving this renaissance resurgence out of Flandre for this squad. We're pulling out the Sejuani top opposite Bin Sion, who just dismantled the Shy a mere few days ago, and Flandre completely nullifies it and looks even tankier than the Bin Sion.
And sticking with the hot dog type of theme, I'm telling you, you can teach an old dog some new tricks. And that's Flandre up in the top side for anyone's legend. Because yes, you go back a year and a half, 2 years ago, no way you're getting this type of performance, this type of pivot from Flandre for anyone's legend, and what he was able to do into really getting that counter action, really working on the side of anyone's legend into BLG and on Bin. Really loved this one from them. A very strong series. Still one of these ones where you did have that pushback and still felt power from BLG, but this was absolutely the triumph of anyone's legend on the day.
Yeah, I mean, Tarzan and Flandre, even a guy like Hope, it felt like 3 years ago, their careers might be done. They might be washed. They can't find a team. They keep getting replaced. And yes, this Misfits team, now we got to start not even calling it really an upset to take down BLG, because they are very much peers and at the same level as the top tier teams in the LPL. Super excited to see them get towards playoffs, because the balance between showing patience around objective dances and willing to pull the trigger on a dime, all 5 players, they are in sync, and they are the most exciting team to watch in the LPL. The most exciting team to watch in the NACL. There's not much competition, but of course it is near Airport. The boys are back. They get a 2-0 over Conviction. And let me tell you, Pobelter has taken these other NACL mids to school, man.
Oh, he is a bully. He's taking that lunch money. He's buying the pizzas. He's eating them all up in the cafeteria. This guy was good and amazing for this near Airport squad in the NACL. This was absolutely one of the ones where you can see some of that time between the last match and how that preparation and practice and the efforts and the investment of these players emotionally has come through for near Airport. I think you're starting to see a little bit more of that team environment start to build around itself and formulate more so to the similarities that we see in pro play or to comparable in Las Ratonas for near Airport. Thought this was a good one. Pobelter again dominating throughout this, setting up his teammates. And how about a double lift, doing the whole gamut of double lift things, right? Flashing into walls, not making the jump on Tristana, and then hey, next thing you look, almost a pentakill right here.
Yeah, that's peak vintage double lift, the ebbs and flows of a single game, especially even on a pick like Tristana. We're going way back to like Bunny Fufu interrupting some of his Tristana jumps for our boomers of the league scene. But obviously, seeing double lift and Pobelter both play at a high level. And listen, I know TF Blade is the most scrutinized, head-scratching member of this roster, but he's actually willing to play Sion in a pro game, which makes me think he's taking this pro career thing actually seriously.
This is a big step, a much bigger step than people, might want to diminish it and kind of blow by it or whatever. I think it is a big step, and it's one of those ones that you talk about, I mentioned with that team environment, that feel starting to come through. Taking a role, understanding it might not be about all the time about this angle. Sometimes the team needs me to be this, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be good at it type of situation. You see TF Blade picking that up for the team. Maybe seeing some of the Baus effect with Las Ratonas and the role that he has played with the team and how stable those tank options have been. Maybe getting a little bit of that here for near Airport.
And again, obviously not one of the top tier squads in the NACL, but just excited to see progress out of them. And anytime they're on the Rift, we're building up that ladder.
They're still on the runway.
Progress. They haven't actually taken flight yet, but it takes a while to build up momentum.
You got to walk before you run, guys. Come on. We got to take this one step at a time. That's what we're going with near Airport. We're seeing that progress. We're seeing development for these guys, and they're still being incredibly interesting and fun to watch within the NACL environment.
The viewership numbers, obviously not as high as Las Ratonas, but still bringing 200% more eyeballs on this Tier 2 region.
I was gonna say, yes, it might not be comparable to Las Ratonas, but when you are comparing it to anything else in the NACL, yes, it is an outlier. It is something that is moving, is drawing numbers and eyes towards the scene. All things we love to see.
All wins across the board, and excited to see the continued growth out of the boys as they scrim twice a week, basically, and as a part-time, full-time team. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute gorgeous individuals. Thank you so much for supporting, as always, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.